text message arrived at 11:40 p.m. My phone lit up the dark room, and I saw my mother's name, Cynthia, glowing on the screen. It read, "Charlotte, your father and I have discussed it. Michaela's wedding in Atlanta is the family's main event. We can't be in two places at once. It's a shame you won't reschedule." I stared at the words. Not a phone call, not a question. A declaration? That familiar, cold tightness gripped my chest, but I didn't cry. I didn't text back why. I just typed 2 words I understand. I put the phone down, turned on my lamp, and opened my laptop. I ignored the urgent emails from my company. Harvest & Co. I opened a private browser tab. 1, they knew nothing about a $10 million vineyard estate in Napa Valley. I clicked inquire. To understand that text message, you have to understand the 30 years that came before it. In our family, my younger sister, Michaela, wasn't just a person. She was the main event, and I was the planner, the quiet one, the convenient background. I remember my 8th birthday. I had asked for one thing, a simple lemon tart. I loved the sharp, clean taste of it. But when my mom, Cynthia, brought out the cake, it was this giant 3-tiered pink monstrosity, a princess castle. I just stared at it, but I asked for a lemon tart. Mom laughed, like I told a silly joke. "Oh, honey, don't be dramatic." Michaela saw the mold at the store and she just had to have it. She helped me decorate it all afternoon. Isn't that sweet? I blew out the candles on a cake I didn't want, while Michaela, who was 5, took the first bite and got applause for helping. My entire childhood was a series of moments just like that. My achievements were nice, dear. While Michaela's were billboard-sized events, this pattern didn't stop when we grew up. It just got more expensive. 2 years ago, I was living in Austin, running my artisanal food brand, Harvest & Co. I had built it from nothing, from a recipe I perfected in my tiny apartment kitchen, into a national brand. When I finally sold it to a major distributor, the deal closed for over $150 million. $150 million. When I called home, my hands were shaking. I thought, this is the moment. This is the one they can't ignore. I told my dad, Wayne, the news. There was a long pause on the line. Finally, he just cleared his throat and said, "Well, that's great. Charlotte, just don't work yourself to death. You know, all that travel isn't healthy." That was it. Don't work yourself to death. 2 weeks later, my phone buzzed with a notification from Mom. It was a video link. My sister Michaela, who was a C-list reality TV personality, had landed a 30-second segment on the local Atlanta news about her favorite hotspots for brunch. That night, my parents threw a champagne party for her. They posted dozens of pictures. My father, who barely acknowledged my $150 million exit, wrote a long, gushing post about our superstar, Michaela, taking over the airwaves. So proud. I looked at the pictures, at their beaming faces celebrating 30 seconds of local brunch recommendations, and I felt that old, familiar coldness. It wasn't anger. It was clarity. I wasn't just the second choice in their story. I wasn't even on the cast list. But the cake, the parties, the $150 million dismissal, that was all just noise. The moment that truly defined my role in the family happened 3 years ago. It was quiet, elegant, and absolutely brutal. My parents, Cynthia and Wayne, had decided to commission a formal family oil portrait. It was, as my mother said, an heirloom for the generations. It took the artist 6 months. When I flew home for Christmas, I walked into the living room, and there it was, hanging above the fireplace in a massive, ornate gold frame. It was beautiful. My father, standing tall. My mother, seated, smiling her polite, strained smile. And beside her, my sister Michaela, glowing, her hand resting perfectly on our mother's shoulder. I stood there for a full minute, just looking. My heart didn't drop. It just stopped. They were all there. My father, my mother, my sister, and I was gone. They hadn't just posed without me. They had commissioned a formal 6-month painting and had simply forgotten I existed. I wasn't just cut out of a photo. I was erased from the heirloom. I was never even part of the canvas to begin with. I later found out this isn't just favoritism. It's a classic sign of a narcissistic family system. In their minds, the family wasn't a group of people. It was a reflection of their own ego. Michaela was the golden child. She was perfect, shiny, an extension of their perceived success. She existed to make them look good. And me, I was the scapegoat, the responsible one, the capable one, the one who was too independent. My success, my $150 million success, didn't reflect well on them. It was my success, not theirs. And because they couldn't control it, they had to diminish it. Because in that system, the scapegoat's role is to be the problem, to be the difficult one, to be the one who carries all the family's unspoken baggage. My success made me inconvenient. And my existence in that portrait was logistically inconvenient. So they just left me out. I stood in that living room, staring at the empty space where I was supposed to be, and I finally understood there is a unique pain that comes from being the invisible child. It's not a loud, sharp ache. It's a quiet, crushing weight. It's the ache of being the convenient one, the easy one, the child who is always expected to understand, to endure, to make no fuss. You are the rock. You are the responsible one. You are the one who never needs anything, until you realize that you've been so convenient for so long that you've become invisible. You are loved for your function, not for yourself. You are the support beam, hidden in the wall, holding everything up while they decorate the room. And the moment you ask for one thing for yourself, the moment you stop holding up the weight, the entire structure treats you as the one who failed. Looking at that oil painting, I realized I had been waiting my whole life for them to see me. And in that one moment, I finally saw them. They were never going to change. The choice had already been made long before that canvas was ever stretched. The next morning, my phone rang. It was my mother, Cynthia. I answered expecting, I don't know what I was expecting. Guilt, a frantic apology. Instead, her voice was high-pitched, not with regret, but with pure frustration. Charlotte, I just don't understand why you are being so difficult about this. You know, Michaela's wedding has media sponsors involved. You're putting me in a terrible position. I sat there holding the phone to my ear, just listening. The old familiar ache in my chest was gone. It was replaced by a strange, cold calm. I'm putting you in a terrible position. Yes, she snapped. And your father, Wayne, agrees. We've always said you were the strong one. The independent one? Why can't you just be the strong one now and move your date? It's just logistics. Honey, it's just easier this way. Easier? That was the word she used for the Princess Castle cake. It was the word they used when they dismissed my $150 million company. It was the unspoken reason I was left out of the family portrait. It was easier to erase me. I took a slow breath. You're right. Mom. The line went silent. I could hear her relax. Hear the smile in her voice as she said, "Oh, good. So you'll call the venue?" "No." I said, my voice quiet but hard as steel. "You're right. You should absolutely go to the event that is most important to you. You should go where you feel you are needed most." "Charlotte, what is that supposed to..." I hung up. The debate was over. The 30-year-long audition to be their daughter was finally over. I sat there for a moment, the silence of my Austin apartment, feeling different. It wasn't lonely. It was clean. Then I made another call, this time to my Aunt Gloria, my mother's younger sister, the one who always, without fail, sent a separate $20 bill and a card for my birthday. Separate from the family's combined gift. She picked up on the second ring. "Charlotte, honey, are you okay?" I told her the whole story. The text, the phone call, the main event in Atlanta. I told her I was still having my wedding, just not with them. The line was quiet for a long, heavy moment. It wasn't the silence of shock. It was the silence of memory. So Gloria's voice was low and rough. "She finally did it to you." I frowned. did what you mean, pick Michaela again. Aunt Gloria let out a short, dry laugh that had no humor in it. Oh, honey, no? I mean, stealing the date. My blood went cold. What are you talking about? Charlotte, she said, and her voice was so tired. 30 years ago, I was planning my engagement party. I had the hall booked. The invitations were sent. Your mother, Cynthia, was my maid of honor. 3 weeks before my party, she announced her wedding. To your father? On the exact same day. I couldn't speak. She called it a coincidence. Gloria continued, her voice like gravel. She said it was destiny. She knew our entire side of the family would have to choose, and she knew they'd choose her wedding over my little party. She smiled right through it. Stole my moment, my joy, and half my guest list all in one go. I leaned back, my head hitting the wall. I suddenly realized in that one horrifying moment that I had been wrong about my mother my entire life. I always thought she was weak, a passive participant, a woman simply overwhelmed by my father's expectations and my sister's blinding light. But she wasn't weak. She was the architect. This wasn't a pattern of favoritism she was just following. This was a generational curse. This was a toxic blueprint she was repeating. She hadn't been backed into a corner by Michaela. She had built the corner herself, and she had just tried to push me into it. The coldness in my chest solidified. It wasn't clarity anymore. It was resolve. I didn't argue. I didn't send screenshots of Aunt Gloria's texts to my mother. I didn't demand an apology. I just got on a plane. 3 days later, I was standing in Napa Valley, the California sun feeling warmer than any I'd ever felt in Austin. I was walking through the $10 million vineyard estate with the realtor. It was perfect. Rolling hills covered in vines. A stone house with massive wooden beams and an ancient 100-year-old grapevine that twisted up the side of the terrace, thick as a tree trunk. When the realtor handed me the pen to sign the final papers, my hand didn't shake. I signed my name, Charlotte, and nothing else. No co-signer. No family trust. This wasn't revenge. It was a reclamation. I had spent 30 years waiting for a seat at their table. The one in the living room with the oil painting I wasn't in. I realized I didn't need a seat. I just needed to build my own table. And now I had to see who would come. I sat on the new terrace of my home, a glass of wine in my hand, and I made the first call, not to my mother, but to her sister, Aunt Gloria. Gloria, I said, my voice steady, my wedding is still on. Sam Dat, it's in Napa at Menu Place. Mom and Dad won't be there. They're going to Michaela's. The silence on the other end was short, but it was loaded with 30 years of shared history. Well, Gloria said finally, her voice suddenly bright. It's about damn time. One of us stopped letting Cynthia run the show. Send me the address. I'll book my flight tonight. I laughed. It was a real laugh. One that came from my chest. Next, I called my cousin Jasmine. She picked up immediately. Okay, fill me in. My mom just texted me in all caps. What did you do? I told her. The same day wedding, the main event, Jasmine let out a groan. Oh my God, Charlotte, are you kidding me? We have to sit through another sponsored party for Michaela. I am so sick of pretending to be happy for her. Wait, where are you going instead? Napa Valley. I said, smiling. I bought a place. You bought a place. There was a shriek. Yes, 1,000 times. Yes, I am. So I'll bring the good champagne. The really good stuff, the kind your mom would never buy. One by one, I made the calls, uncles, cousins, the ones who had always been pushed to the side, just like me, the ones who had seen the princess cake, who had noticed the empty space in the portrait, who were tired of the pretense. The last call was the hardest. My grandmother, Judith, my father's mother, she was the matriarch. She was 80 years old, and she was the one person whose opinion I still truly feared. She answered, her voice frail but clear. Charlotte, my dear, what a surprise. I took a deep breath. I told her everything. I told her about the text, the phone call, the 2 weddings, and then I told her about Napa. You don't have to come, Grandma. I said quickly, I know it's a long flight. I wanted you to hear it from me. Grandma Judith was quiet for a long time. I could hear the clock ticking on her wall. Charlotte, she said finally, and her voice was no longer frail. It was strong, like iron. Your mother and father, they've forgotten. They've forgotten what a family is for. She paused. Your mother, Cynthia, told me I'm too old to travel, that I should go to Atlanta because it's easier. But I've lived long enough to know that love isn't about what's easy. It's about who shows up. Tears, hot and fast, finally pricked my eyes. So you mark my words, girl, Grandma Judith said, her voice full of sudden, fierce joy. I am coming to Napa, and I am wearing my best dress. The good one, the one I've been saving. When I hung up the phone, I looked out over the vineyard. The sun was setting, painting the hills in gold and purple. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't an invisible girl hoping to be invited. I was the woman building the table, and the real family was already on its way. The day arrived, 2 weddings, 2 worlds, under the same sun. In Atlanta, the main event began. It was held in a massive, cold hotel ballroom. My mother, Cynthia, had gotten everything she wanted: the crystal chandeliers, the ice sculptures, the event sponsors. Michaela looked like a reality TV star. Her dress enormous, her makeup perfect for the cameras. But the room was hollow. The air conditioning was too high. The scent of thousands of hothouse flowers was suffocating, and the chairs were empty. The front 3 rows, reserved for family, were a sea of white satin ribbons on empty seats. My mother, in a stiff leona dress, kept smiling for the cameras, her hand gripping my father's arm. My father, Wayne, just stared straight ahead, his jaw tight. Michaela walked down the aisle, her smile practiced, but her eyes kept darting to those empty rows. Where was Grandma Judith? Where was Aunt Gloria? Where was everyone? The few guests who did show up, friends of my parents, Michaela's TV acquaintances whispered to each other. Where is the family? I thought Charlotte's family was huge. This is strange. My mother's smile became a brittle, painted-on thing. My father looked at his watch. Meanwhile, in Napa, the sun was setting. There was no ballroom. There were no chandeliers. Just strings of warm, golden lights I'd hung myself, woven through the trellis of the ancient 100-year-old grapevine. There was no stage, just a single long wooden table set for 40 people. And every single seat was full. The air wasn't cold. It was warm, alive, smelling of roasted garlic and rosemary and the sweet, dusty scent of the vineyard. I walked out of the stone house in a simple silk dress, and the whole table, my whole family, stood up. I saw my cousin Jasmine pouring champagne, laughing so hard she snorted. I saw Aunt Gloria, her eyes shining, raising her glass to me from across the table. And right at the front, in the seat of honor, was my grandmother, Judith. She wasn't frail. She was a queen. She was wearing her best dress, the good one. And in her hand, she wasn't holding a program. She was holding a small leafy cutting from that 100-year-old vine. As I walked toward my husband, and she held it up like a scepter, the ceremony was short. Our vows were simple. Michaela, I heard later, had a 20-minute speech about her journey. My vows took 1 minute. I looked at my husband, and then I turned to the table, to the faces of my real family, all of them glowing in the dusk. I have just one more vow. I said, my voice quiet, but carrying in the warm air, I promise to all of you, to the people who chose to be here, to the ones who show up. My grandmother, Judith, nodded slowly. Her eyes closed. That's it. Girl, she whispered. That's the one. In Atlanta, my sister, the golden child, stood under blinding lights, surrounded by empty chairs, in the center of a hollow performance. In Napa, the scapegoat, stood under the stars, surrounded by everyone who mattered. Finally, at the head of my own table. The reception in Atlanta was, I'm told, a profoundly awkward affair. My parents, Cynthia and Wayne, worked the room with tight, forced smiles. Michaela posed for cameras, but the background of every shot was just empty space. Then, around 9 p.m., the phone started to buzz. My cousin Jasmine, feeling righteous and perhaps a little bit tipsy on the really good champagne, had posted the first photo from Napa. It wasn't just any photo. It was a wide shot of the entire long table, bathed in the gold light of the sunset under the vines. 40 relatives, arms linked, glasses raised, and in the center, my grandmother, Judith, holding her grapevine scepter high, her face split in a wide, joyous grin. Jasmine's caption was simple and lethal. At the real family wedding, so much love at Charlotte's Napa table. The photo spread through the Atlanta ballroom like wildfire. Guests started murmuring, holding their screens up to each other. Wait, isn't that all of them? I thought the grandmother was too sick to travel. They're all in California. Someone showed the photo to my father. His glass stopped halfway to his mouth. My mother, Cynthia, marched over, squinted at the screen, and the blood drained from her face. I was told Michaela, the golden child, saw it last. She looked at the image of her entire family, celebrating without her, and her practiced media-trained smile didn't just fade, it shattered. The next morning, I was sitting on my terrace in Napa. The air was perfectly still. I was drinking coffee, watching the fog burn off the vines. My phone rang. My mother, I let it ring 3 times. Then I answered. Her voice wasn't sad. It wasn't apologetic. It was a shriek. Charlotte, how could you? You humiliated us. You humiliated your sister. Do you have any idea what you've done? You split this family in half. I sipped my coffee. I didn't split anything. Mom, I just hosted a wedding. The people who wanted to come came. She was sputtering. Grandma Judith was there, Aunt Gloria, they chose you. In front of all our friends, before I could answer, a hand, wrinkled but strong, covered mine and took the phone from me. It was Grandma Judith. She'd been sitting with me, eating a scone. She put the phone on speaker. Cynthia. She said, her voice was cold, calm, and terrifying. The line went dead silent. Now you listen to me. Grandma Judith said, her voice cutting through the Napa morning, you were not humiliated. You were exposed. You've spent 30 years building this little stage for you and your favorite child, and you were furious because for the first time, you looked out and the audience was gone. Mother, that's not. I am speaking. Judith snapped. You gave everyone a choice between a cold, sponsored performance in Atlanta and a warm, honest table in Napa. You chose your show. The rest of us, we just went where the love actually was. She didn't wait for a reply. She just pressed the end call button. Click. I stared at her. She just smiled, picked up her scone, and took a bite. My goodness. She said, this is a lovely view. A few days later, after everyone had flown home, the vineyard was quiet again. My new family chat, the Napa table, was buzzing with pictures and plans for Thanksgiving. I got a text from a number I almost didn't recognize. It was Michaela. It just said, your wedding looked nice. I thought for a long time. Then I typed back, I hope you're happy. She didn't reply. And for the first time, that was okay. I was standing by that ancient grapevine, the one Grandma Judith had taken a cutting from, and I finally understood. For 30 years, I had been waiting for them to change. I'd been hoping, begging, and negotiating for a love they were incapable of giving. The real peace, it didn't come when Grandma Judith hung up the phone. It didn't even come when all those people showed up for my wedding. The real peace came in that one moment I let go of the hope that they would ever be different. Severing a toxic blood tie isn't an act of hate. It's a radical act of self-preservation. It's not about revenge. It's about reallocation. You're just taking all the energy you've been wasting on a door that will never open. And you're using it to build your own. You don't have to fight for a seat at someone else's table. You just have to build your own. You don't have to worry about the empty chairs. Just build the table, and the right people, the real family. They will find their way to it.